So today is Friday, a crazy Black Friday, and we're going to do a Transformer Slag podcast Patreon listener question that also has almost something related to the news recently. And if you want to be part of the Transformer Slag podcast Patreon, help support the podcast, let us know we're doing a half-decent job here in the Transformer world, keeping you educated, entertained, and informed in our crazy hobby. Patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description below. Send us a couple bucks and let us know we're doing a good job. But what does it get you if you get into our Patreon? Well, it gets your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment moving forward, letting everyone know that you're helping us get this podcast together. Access to our exclusive Discord, which, let me tell you something, during Black Friday, we have been listing in our Discord every single possible sale there is. So if you want to save money in your hobby, and that's the big thing about our Discord, aside from the cool chats that we have and the discussions and breaking the news, one of the big parts of our Discord is posting every single sale that happens so you don't have to pay full price for your Transformers. Paying full prices for suckers, and in a post-2022 inflation world, you got to find a way to squeeze every penny you can, and that's one way to do it. So again, as well as other things that you get in our Patreon, it might get you a little something in the mail, gives you access to our giveaways, which we're going to be doing another giveaway tomorrow on the live stream, and of course, depending on what tier you're at, you might get to ask the Patreon listener question. We got a Patreon listener question here from longtime patron Jesus Prime. And Jesus Prime is asking a question. He wants to know, hey there, Proto Man. I got a Patreon listener question today. First, allow me to tell you my train of thought. A while back, you said that the Yuusha Brave series of repaints would be way too obscure for Hasbro to sell in the West, even characters that were originally based on Generation 1 molds. Then I thought about the possibility of maybe we could get a new Lio Kaiser and then get maybe the Autobot Rescue Force repainted from those. But I thought those might also be too obscure, much like your statement with the Brave stuff. This all lands to my question. Is there any characters that are too obscure for Hasbro to make into Transformers product or even modern repaints? Thanks again for the podcast and the community you have created, Jesus Prime. P.S. Would Guard City or Battle Gaia from Operation Combination also be a possibility? Well, again, thank you for the kind words, Jesus Prime, and thank you for being a longtime patron. So first I want to cover one thing. My statement that I said about the Brave stuff and Yuusha stuff, for people that aren't aware, you know, there's a long history of Transformers with the Brave series, which was another transforming robot series that was produced by Sunrise Entertainment, and the toys were done by Takara, and they have a lot of Transformer ties, both in design and unreleased designs. That's a whole discussion in itself. It's a long story, but the point being is they had that relationship, and since then that relationship doesn't exist anymore, and I'll explain why. Because the reason why I think the Brave stuff will never happen is primarily because of a licensing issue. And while Takara did indeed make the Brave stuff, the Yuusha toys and everything in that original run in the 90s, and especially the entire run of the show, and that huge, strong history that it has with Transformers, it literally is a sister or cousin series. I did a separate podcast segment talking about some recent reveals and stuff in relation to it, because even though it's not owned by Takara anymore, I still talk about it once in a while because of that connection. Sunrise, the animation studio that helped co-develop it, also owns a huge chunk of those rights. And the problem with that is when Bandai, specifically Bandai Namco as it's called today, bought Sunrise Entertainment in late 2005, Takara worked out a deal with them to relinquish the rights for the Brave Yuusha stuff. And I believe Takara's logic was, especially at that time in late 2005, was, here's, Transformers the movie 2007 was being baked behind the scenes. Takara had this great relationship with Studio Gonzo, an anime studio that worked on Transformers Galaxy Force, and they've done formerly before that Full Metal Panic and a whole bunch of other great stuff. And I mean, I think they were even working at that time on the ill-fated G.I. Joe Sigma 6 anime. So Takara and Hasbro kind of had that relationship with Studio Gonzo, so they didn't really need to stick also with Sunrise Entertainment. And combined with the fact that, Sunrise had a really good relationship with Bandai because of that huge Gundam history. So I guess their logic was, why hold on to this brand that they felt, if anything, would just be, counterintuitive to themselves. They don't need Brave stuff. They got Transformers, and look how successful Transformers is going to be. And, Sunrise, let them go do their own thing because they've had a great relationship with Bandai and the Gundam brand for decades. So I think that was probably Takara's logic. I mean, to cover your main part of your question, is there Transformers that are too obscure? Not anymore. I mean, Mark Mayer, one of the lead designers at Hasbro's Transformer brand, said that, if the platform is there, anything is possible. Specifically, and I've talked about this in the past, specifically sold exclusives. Sold retail exclusives where the retailer agrees to buy all the stock of an exclusive set of figures that is made up front, where, that's where the weird stuff could be made, and then Hasbro doesn't have to worry about it. Then it's their problem if there's leftover units, if it's too obscure. That's the place where that playground is going to happen. I mean, geez, that's look what we got happening today between canceled G2 colors, weird comic book only characters, Diaclone colors from a toy line that didn't even, come out when most of these people were born, late 70s. Most people didn't grow up with Diaclone, let alone, being in Japan. Or even characters that appeared in one episode in the background for 5 seconds of frames. I'm looking at you, Greenlight and Lancer. And I have no problem with those characters being made. I'm actually quite supportive of it. But the point is, we live in a world where that stuff exists. So anything is possible. Anything is possible within the limits of trademarks and licensing. And that's where the Brave thing kind of, falls apart, in my opinion. But I do agree, something like Lio Kaiser or the Rescue Force, totally possible. I think Lio Kaiser is a given at some point in retail or something like that. And the second you get those molds, those repaints are going to happen for sure. They got to make the most they can. So right now, it's going to be tough for Takara and Hasbro to do any Brave-related stuff because of that. But it does not mean that, Bandai Namco is not putting out stuff. I mean, we talked about it on the podcast, the Soul of Chogokin GX King X Kaiser. That's going to be coming out next year from Bandai Namco and everything. So keep an eye out for that if you want more Brave stuff. It's out there. It's out there. They're doing model kits. They're doing non-transformable figures, transformable figures. If you're looking for Brave stuff, you're going to just have to kind of look at the current license holder for it, and that would have to be Bandai Namco. And I'm pretty sure they're going to do pretty good stuff. And you also mentioned stuff like, Guard City. Is Guard City a possibility? Well, we did kind of get a mild Guard City homage back in 2014. There was that Protectobots evac squad, I think it was a 2-pack or something. I know I have it somewhere in the collection. I don't have it sealed, so I don't remember if it was a 2-pack or 3-pack. I think it was a 2-pack. And they took that Reveal the Shield Storm Grapple. That had such a weird name back then. And they gave it that Fire Chief, / Guard City color scheme. I'm pretty sure at some point, they're going to do Defensor again. And then they're going to look at that mold and go, how many things could we repaint this into? And at some point, we're going to see Fire Chief, and we're going to see the others and everything like that. It's all just a matter of time. We live in a world. We live in a world where we have the canceled G2 Seeker Sandstorm as a figure. We live in a world where the Toy Co. Shockwave is a figure. We live in a world where we have the army of Diaclone colored figures that we are building every single couple of months. We have DK3 Breaker. It's cool, but I doubt there was anyone in the fandom was sitting around going, you know what we need? That obscure blue Toyota 4WD Hilux that Trailbreaker turned into that no one has thought about for the past 40 years unless you were a Diaclone completist, That's the world we live in today. So nothing is obscure anymore. It's now that we have these sold exclusives, the blank slate is kind of there. We have toy only characters, toy only color schemes where it's hey, let's do this. We have Halloween HorrorCon homages. We got so much weird stuff now. If you would have told me, you're going to get, Cheetah Bra Black Arachnia, toy exclusive. Anything is possible now at this point. Anything. So the hats are number one more than anything is, if it's a female character that's obscure, has way more of a chance because they always want to balance that out. Number two, they need to have new and fresh ideas. The older collector base is running out of stuff for them to buy when you perfect yourself with certain characters. I mean, if you're a guy who collects masterpieces, why would you want to then turn around and buy any retail versions of your 50th, Prowl or Hound or Inferno or something? But if you give them a repaint of Inferno that's an obscure character that doesn't have a masterpiece equivalency, you could get their dollars too. And that's where I kind of see that is they're able to make sales to the stores that are going to buy those pre-sold items and then continue keeping the interest of the older collectors. The younger collectors, they just, they pretty much rely on us to kind of, in a lot of ways, educate you guys on why you should be excited about a blue repaint of Trailbreaker and what the story is there. But I don't think anything is out of the question. And that's the world that we live in, more or less. And so I hope that kind of answers that. You're definitely going to get the weird stuff. Just the Brave Yuusha stuff, unfortunately, due to licensing, that's going to be an issue. But everything else, look, one day we're going to get a Scrounge repaint, maybe out of that Cosmos as a Walmart exclusive. Who knows? But I know that the future is definitely going to bring more of that, especially when you look at some of the listings that we've been seeing in the past couple of years of what is to come too. But that's for another story. So I hope it answers that question. So thanks again, Jesus Prime, for another awesome question on the Transformer Slag podcast. And if you want to be part of the Transformer Slag podcast Patreon and help support the podcast, let us know we're doing a decent job keeping you entertained, educated, and informed in the Transformer world. Patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description below to join. Come join us. And like I always say, rock out with the robots in the skies. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Saturday Night Live.